Hey there! Today I am going to take a stab at some honey oat sourdough. My hope for this is that it'll be there will be some honey flavor, maybe a little sweet, and then just that nice silky oat thing going on. If it winds up being a little bit sweeter, a little bit less sweet or whatever, I'm not terribly concerned because it's the first time I'm trying it, and I think it's just going to be fun. Now, what I've got going on here for the flour and grains and whatnot is I'm going with 25% quick oats. I'm going with 45% unbleached all-purpose flour and then 30% whole wheat bread flour. I'm including the oats in the flour percentage, if you will, with regards to everything else here. I'm going for a 75% hydration dough. So this is 750 grams or mils of filtered water. Got 250 of the oats, 450 of the white, and 300, sorry, of the whole wheat. So I already have my leaven going right now. You can check my video on how to make a leaven if you'd like. I'm just going to do the autolyse at this point. I'm not mixing the honey into this. I'm going to do that later on at the same time that I put in the salt and whatnot. So I'm just going to fire this in here. I'm going to mix this for 4 to 5 minutes just until it's all really nicely integrated. I have no idea what this oats addition is going to do here. It feels just like you can feel the texture of the oats just a little bit, some kind of flakiness going on in here. I'm not sure how they will compare to flour for water absorption. This is all going to be super interesting to me. So let's check this out again here when I'm done mixing. So I'm about 3 minutes into mixing. I don't see a point in moving forward with that. Picking this up, everything's incredibly integrated. This is really quite stiff and definitely sticky. It's like a really stiff but super sticky Play-Doh, homemade Play-Doh at this point. If I wasn't adding the honey to this, I'd be extremely tempted to add more water and just increase the hydration just between the whole wheat flour and the oats. This is really quite stiff, but since I am going to be adding a hefty honey addition down the road, I think I'll leave it like this and just kind of see what happens. So I'm going to give this, I guess it kind of depends on my leaven, probably 2.5, maybe as long as 3 hours autolyse, and then I will be adding the leaven. This leaven is looking really nice and ready. This has been going for about 6 hours now. Sitting in the incubator at 82 Fahrenheit, and I've got my dough here, essentially, after the autolyse. It said 3 hours, and it's looking pretty stiff. We'll see if we can hydrate it just a little bit with this starter. So I'm going to add in 200 grams of this leaven. Come on. I'm getting closer. Almost there. So close. Well, there's that extra gram. No? I lied. Okay. Whatever. That should do it. The gram that never shows up. Where are you? We'll overshoot. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to wet my hands with some filtered water, just to hopefully make a little bit less of a mess on myself. I'm going to start poking and prodding. Oh yeah, this is definitely firmer than my usual dough at this point. It's feeling it right now, like you can tell that everything has in fact hydrated. The autolyse is doing its thing. However, certainly not as wet as my usual dough. But again, I'm planning on adding 200 grams of liquid honey to this, which really should change that situation. I'm going to mix this for 4 minutes probably, and then we'll see what she's looking like. Well, that was just over 4 minutes. You can see it's still fairly sticky. This was definitely more of a workout than my normal dough because of how firm everything is in there. At this point, I'm like, I really want it to be more hydrated. It would be a lot easier to work with. However, again, I'm just banking on that big honey addition to change things up for the remainder of it. So this is going to sit for 30 minutes, and covered up, and then when we come back, it's time to add the salt and the honey. Okay, so it's been half an hour, and we're at the moment that I've been waiting for. I'm doing my salt addition. It's 18 grams of that in there, and now a whole lot of honey. So this is 200 grams being added to this. So the great hope here is that this is going to hydrate things nicely for me. But I guess we shall find out here right away whether or not that's the case. Of course, dealing with honey is super fun, trying to get it out. That's pretty much all that I'm going to get out of there. So it might actually be a few grams less than 200, but we're pretty close. Oh yeah, the dough here is feeling already more moist, just after the leaven being mixed in and everything kind of relaxing. And now with this honey going in here, I am sure that that is going to help things out significantly. Oh, for sure. All right, I'm going to mix this up for 4 minutes, and then we will see how it has, fingers crossed, improved. So this is actually wrapping up a full 5-minute mix with that honey. I actually was pretty worried for the first 2.5 minutes because the honey seemed like it was really resisting absorption into the dough. As you can see now, everything it's all definitely fully incorporated. But for about the first 3 minutes, I was starting to get worried that I had flown a little too close to the honey sun. The dough was almost kind of like stringy, and it seemed like any small pieces that were pulling apart or like stringing out from the actual dough was just getting coated with the honey and then refusing to be reincorporated. But the last 2 minutes here, things really came together quite nicely. So hopes are once again high. At this point, I'm going to let this sit for half an hour, and then we're going to do a stretch and fold. All right, so 30 minutes has passed, and this is really starting to look a little bit more like my sourdough normally looks, which is very, very good just for handling. I'm going to do the first stretch and fold, so I'm just going to spray down a work surface here with some filtered water. I'm going to wet my hands with the same. Do some quick scooping just to help loosen this from the edges of the bowl. And get it out. Ooh. Seems a little bit more stuck to it than it is normally, but I guess with all that honey, who can blame you? Oh, yeah, it smells like honey too. That's fantastic. All right, so a little stretch and fold action. So I'm just going to stretch it out and fold it over. I'm going to stretch, fold over. Some love taps here. Stretch, try and hit my daughter with holding the camera. And last stretch and fold. Of course, always the tightest one. Doesn't want to stretch as far as the others. And pat it down. Awesome. Okay, so this is now going to hang out for another half hour, and then we will do the lamination and get it into a fresh bowl. Right, here we are. We can see some inflation is taking place. That's awesome. It's time for the lamination. So again, I'm just going to wet my work surface with some filtered water. Again, hands get wetted with the same. A little scooping around here to ease the removal. And whoop, there we go. All right, more water. So, as always with lamination, it's a process of pulling from the center, stretching out, trying to make a bit of a sheet, nice and thin. So this dough is feeling sticky, but not sticky like sourdough often is when it's a higher hydration sourdough, but sticky like I've got honey on my hands a little bit here, sticky. So it's kind of funny. It's definitely different for me. But again, all that does is excite me about what the finished product might be like. And this is smelling. Again, I can smell honey, which is super awesome. All right, so there we are. So, relatively uniform. I'm going to fold over a third, pat it down, fold over the other third here, pat, pat, pat. We go like this and like that. Fun. All right, so now I'm just going to plunk this. Oh, actually, in my new bowl. Give me 1 second. I just forgot it over here. Oh. And tuck it in here. Because from this point forward, it's going to be 2 to 3 coil folds, and then it's done. So let's check on it in 30 minutes. So, coil fold number 1, wet hands. Let's see how she picks up. Ooh. That one side's not super eager to let go. I'll do it like that. And fold. And coil fold. There we go. All right. And another 30 minutes. Well, it's time for coil fold number 2, so let's see how it's coming along. Ooh, a little sticky there. I have a feeling I'm going to do, yes, for sure. I'll do a 3rd coil fold on this before we divide it and shape. So another 30 minutes have gone by. This is starting to get some nice little shape to it. I am just going to do 1 more coil fold here though, just to see. Try and make sure we've got as much strength as possible. Oh yeah. There we go. And of course, pat it down. Pop any little bubbles that are there. Sweet. Okay, in 30 minutes then, I'm going to divide and pre-shape. All right, so it is time for the dividing and pre-shaping. So I've got the tabletop here lightly floured. I'm just going to remove the dough. You can still smell honey. Love it. Now just try to make this as even as possible. I think maybe going this way would be the best way. And it smells, I smell oats too. I swear it's just not just in my head. Okay, and we'll do just a very light pre-shaping. Pop it over here. Do this other one. Roll that up. Give it a flip. Really quick spin. Pop that bubble. And cover them up. Let them sit for half an hour. Okay, so these guys are ready to actually put into the baskets for overnight proofing. I'm just going to go ahead and take it very gently. Just do a final last little shaping and set it over here. This one here, again, final gentle shaping. And then I'm just going to sprinkle some oats on these. And then I'm just going to put this, get some oats in the bowl as well. I want to have oats all over the place, all over the top of these guys. Hopefully this works. We'll see how many of these things just fall off when we go to move them, but the dough's still a little bit wet, so hopefully that will stick. Okay, so carefully set in there. Carefully set this one in here. And then I'm just going to do the retardation overnight, so I'm going to throw them in bags, get them in the fridge, and then tomorrow we will bake. All right, next morning here, I'm ready to bake. Everything's been preheated. I'm just going to spin these over and then possibly add some more oats after I score. So I've got that ready. Let's see what everything looks like. Oh, there you go, right, score. Just sprinkle some more on the top here. Then I got to get this in. And pull that out of the way. Quickly do number 2. Oh, very, very excited about these here. And sprinkle on. Awesome. And then get the lid on. Cool, so I'm going to give these 35 minutes covered up at 450, and then we will take the lids off. All right, let's check out this oven spring here. After that 35 minutes, oh, it's looking not too bad. Fantastic. Okay, so we'll just let that cook for another half hour, so I'll drop the temp to 440. All right, we are done. I'm going to pull these out. Whew, look at that. And the second one here. Oh, I absolutely love how those oats look on there. Now, the final trick, and this is a suggestion by my wife, is a little drizzle of honey across the tops of these here while they're still hot, which will hopefully add a cool little honey zip to them here. All right, so I'm going to let these things cool down for a couple hours, and then we will test them out. Well, it is test time. This looks awesome. I really like what that honey did to the top. It just kind of melted onto it, created a little bit of a sheen that I'm hoping will just be nice and sweet. Let's slice into this. It's funny, these edges got quite dark, darker than the bread normally would have, being in there for that amount of time. However, I'm guessing that's because of the extra sugars with the honey and stuff. So looking at the crumb here, that's not too bad. It's feeling like really, really moist and whatnot. I'm sure it's because of all that honey that was in there. Now this didn't rise as much as some of my other breads, but again, I'm guessing that the difference in the actual flour composition, all those oats and then that honey played a bit of a role there. So let's take a little slice. Considering how dark it looks, it's actually slicing pretty decently. And we will, oh man, it's still warm. It did rest for almost 2 hours, but yeah, it's still nice and warm, which is beautiful. All right, here we go. There's definitely honey in it, for sure. It's nice and sweet. Absolutely, it's almost like there's honey right on it. The bread itself is extremely moist. With the oats in there, it's almost kind of creating like a silkiness to the actual chew, and you get the toastiness of the oats from the top there. This is fantastic. It's going to make a beautiful breakfast bread, as well as just for a snack or for dessert even. This is amazing. I think we'll definitely do this again. So, yeah, for sure. This is taking sourdough to 11.